Hey Tekken players, hope you're all doing well. So for this King guide, I'm going to talk about all of King's punishers. Now you could go through King's punishment options in literally about 10 seconds if you wanted to, but I'm going to include all the properties on hit and to discuss the best follow-ups and what will be your opponent's options, and also include the general strengths and weaknesses of the various punishment options, including in different stages. So basically I've been in the lab so you don't have to. Now this will include some basic discussion about frames. If you're unsure what we mean when we talk about frames, then I please urge you to go and watch my frame guide that I made for Tekken 7, but all of the fundamental information is still relevant for Tekken 8. Just before I start the video proper, just a big thank you for all of those who have subbed to the channel. At the time of recording, we're starting to edge towards the 5k milestone. Now I would love to do a special type of video to celebrate if we make that total, but I haven't decided exactly what yet, so feel free to drop a comment below if you have any suggestions. As always, if the video helps you, please hit the like button to appease the almighty algorithm sovereigns. Okay, so if you block a move that's at least -10, you have his 2 jab strings, which are 1-2 and 2-1. In terms of which one you should go for, 2-1 gives 5 more points of damage at 25, but the range is not so good. So any move with even a tiny bit of pushback may lead the first jab to whiff. 1-2 has much better range but less damage, but you can add a final hit with 1-2-1. Now although it's not a natural combo and so will not hit them if they block, because it's a mid it will clip them if they flash duck, and also it's actually +10 on counter hit in case they mash, so you actually get a guaranteed 2-1 on counter hit. So before we talk about the follow-up options to the punishers, I just need to talk about some general universal truths about what options your opponent might do after they've been hit. If they haven't used their heat yet, all heat bursts come out in 15 frames, but from the limited testing I've done, it seems that the armour begins at 7 frames, which is pretty insane when you think about it in terms of frame count. If they have access to a rage art, then it comes out in 20 frames. The armour begins at about frame 8. Finally, as a general rule, if you're at -7, then trying to sidestep is not really an option, as almost all moves will clip you if you try and sidestep. Now both 2-1 and 1-2 have the same frames on hit, which means you're at +8. This is incredibly good for King. However, because heat and rage are so strong in this game, this limits our options as to what we can actually do if they have access to either of them. So first of all, let's discuss what options they have if they can access heat or rage. So in terms of follow-ups, throws are a great idea as they beat all of the various options your opponent can do outside of ducking. So this includes heat burst, backdash, sidestep, mashing, anything. The only thing they can do is duck or guess the break. If your opponent has really good throw breaks, then your best bet is to either go for a giant swing or ISW to hide the mix-up and make it a true 50-50. If they don't have good throw breaks, then go for any throw you want to. If you think they'll duck the throw and you want to use a mid check, then there's several safe options for you. So again, if they still have access to rage or heat burst, even at +8, the only mids we can do to check them are down forward 1 and down forward 2. This is because even at +8, if we do any move that's slower than 15 frames, then the arm of the heat burst will activate in time. I know that seems like total insanity, but welcome to Tekken 8 boys. Now if they have already used their heat and they can't access rage yet, then we have lots more mid options. Forward 3 into 1+2 provides the most damage while being safe and has great Oki. Forward 1+4 or
Justice Nipples
comes out in about 17 frames, and so it may trade with a jab but it will beat everything else. It also is plus on block, so it's good for setting up throws and frame traps. And finally, if you're really skilled, then down forward 2 comes out in 13 frames, and this is the important bit, if they press any button and you score the counter hit, you'll get the knockdown. You can either get a mini combo, or if you have the skills, which unfortunately I don't, you can get full combo. Shoutouts to Gator of War for his tutorial. Now bear in mind, if you don't score the counter hit, they can duck and launch the high. Just on a side note in terms of identifying if you scored the counter hit, if you look incredibly carefully, you'll notice that if it's on counter hit, the purple spark is just slightly bigger than if it's on normal hit. It is really hard to see, so you'll have to go into practice to have a go. Now at 12 frames we have back 1-2, which gives 33 damage and +5. Now before discussing the options, given you actually have more frames on hit and only 8 less points of damage, punishing -12 moves with 2-1 is a legit option that you may want to go for, especially if your opponent still has access to heat. Let me explain what I mean. Now just to mention, back 1-2 does have great range, so you'll never have to worry about whiffing it, to be honest. So let's talk about the options at +5. Well, if you opt for the same throw mix-up like last time, this will beat all the options outside of people who duck, as long as you do them fast enough. So same situation as the 10 frame punishers options. Now when it comes to mids, if they have access to heat, then I've got some bad news for you. Literally, you don't have a mid that's fast enough to break the heat burst. I know that sounds mad when you're at +5, and sorry to break it to you, but it's just maths. And unfortunately, that is just the way it works. Now the more I've looked into this, the more I realise just how strong heat burst is as a mechanic. It is absolutely insane. It's just basically a free panic tool that every person has in the game. So welcome to Tekken 8 guys. Now if they don't have access to heat, then 432 DDT is still an option, but it may trade with a jab, and characters with good side step can step this to the right. So with this in mind, you may want to check them with down forward 1, which is 14 frames fast and safe if you don't commit to the second hit. However, this can be stepped to the right by characters with good movement. Now you can negate this with using down forward 3, which is also mid check and it tracks to his weak side. Although just to play with the mind games, it doesn't track to the left. However, again, if you have the skill, then down forward 2, ideally into a counter hit confirm, is the safest option, because it tracks to the left and it tracks to the right, and again, if you can score the counter hit, you can actually get some massive damage. At 14 frames we have back 2-1. Just to mention, this is high, so if you're too slow on the punish, then they can duck the second hit. Now in the open, this scores a knockdown into Oki, which means we now no longer have to worry about or think about people who are mashing their heat burst or their rage art. Now from my testing, if they do literally any option apart from normal wake up into standing, so that includes staying on the ground, waking up in crouch, quick get up, spring kick, etc, then crouch dash 1+2 will beat all of these options, and if you're lightning fast you'll score counter hits on many of the get up kicks. Now if they get up standing, so not ducking, then a crouch dash throw is actually probably the best option. Remember, as we said, if they do get up ducking, then crouch dash 1+2 will still hit them. Now alternatively, you can go for an easy mode by just basically running up and doing a shining wizard. And to mix this up, you can actually run up into a giant swing, which as I've discovered is actually much easier to do now in Tekken 8. So that's open field, but where this punisher gets really good is by the wall, as it wall splats, it wall pounds, and it balcony breaks. So if it's a wall splat, these are some of your best combos to go for. And if you score the balcony break or the wall bound, here's some other combo ideas. At 15 frames we have two options with up forward 4 and forward 2-1. Up forward 4 is our hop kick for a full launch. Like all hop kicks, it's -13 on block, which is good to know again in case you're a bit too slow on the punish. And depending on the combo, you can expect to get mid 60s to 70-ish damage without a wall. Now forward 2-1 doesn't launch outside of heat, but it is a heat engager, which means it's a way of gaining back recoverable health, and it has much better range than the hop knee. So it's definitely the move to go for any moves that have any pushback. Now I've made a separate video going through all the options you may want to consider if you land a heat engager, which I'll leave a link below. So again, depending on which option you go for will depend on the pushback and if you want to enter heat or not. Also worth mentioning that forward 2-1 like back 2-1 will wall splat, wall pound and balcony break. And as mentioned, because it's a heat dash move, when in heat it also launches, it wall crushes and all the other various heat dash specific properties. And finally, just to mention that forward 2-1 is technically safe, however you can duck and launch the high if you block the mid, so bear that in mind again if you're a bit too slow on the punish. So that's all of his standing punishment options, so now let's talk about standing punishment from crouch when you block a low, which in Tekken we usually refer to as while standing. At -10 to 11 you can either do while standing 1 or dick jab, so basically not much to see here, move along. At -12 you can do while standing 4. This gives great damage and is +5 on hit. As it's +5, you're basically in the same situation with the follow-up options as back 1-2. It's important to note that it's a very chunky while standing 4, and so very often if you trade with another character's while standing 4 from crouch, then you may well come on top when it comes to damage. Now at -13 we get really interesting options. If they hit you with a low that recovers standing, then while standing 4 is still your best option. If however it recovers in crouch, so for example our Dragonoff's down 2 and Jin's down 2, then it becomes much more interesting. On a normal stage you can block into a pedigree for a heat engager. This is technically a punish because they can't duck it and they can't break the throw. If it's on the lava floor blast stage, you want to go for either down 1+3 or down 2+4 for a full launch, and yes, this is me doing it in a real match. And if you're lucky to block this on a floor break stage, you can launch with down 2-4 for a full combo, which is absolutely insane when you think you're only blocking a -13 low. Now don't be surprised if this gets nerfed or removed in a future patch. So if you're playing on either floor break or lava stage, this is the legit best option to go for all moves at -13 or more, as long as they recover crouching. Now for -14 on a normal stage and with no crouching properties, we have while standing 2-2. This gives a massive +12 guard frames on hit. Now because they're guard frames, nothing is guaranteed, but at +12 then it's basically kind of on a par with a heat engager when it comes to your options. However, bear in mind, as you can see, the opponent does get knocked quite far back, and so short range mids and follow-ups and throws will lose to backdashing. So my suggestion would be to go for a CD mix-up. You can either go for CD throw, and if you think they'll duck, then you can go for CD while standing 4 for your safe mid check, or CD to 1+2 for launch. But bear in mind it is -10 on block. At -15 we can now launch with full crouch down 4-2 for a full combo. This has absolutely insane range to the point where it can launch punish even pulls forward 4-2-2. Now executing a clean full crouch down 4-2 and not getting a down jab is actually harder than you think. I'm going to make a video on how to improve your king execution on the pad with a hand cam, so be sure to subscribe to not miss it. Finally, at -20 and above, so basically blocking hell sweeps or snake edges, we have while standing 1+2. As you can see, the combo damage is basically a bit more than the full crouch down 4-2. But the range isn't actually as good, so again it's slightly situational as to which one you want to go for. Thanks all for watching. That now covers all the details you need to know when it comes to King's block punishment options. Again, if this has helped you then please drop it a like and subscribe for more King and Tekken 8 guides. Thanks everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.